Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gents, for another YouTube video. Hopefully you've all had a fantastic Thursday so far. Today we're going to be diving into our daily cryptocurrency market update. And in yesterday's update, we said, look guys, you've got to be careful. These rallies, in my opinion, are there to be shorted. We still see further downside for the entire market. And the reason that we always start these videos as of late off with this chart is because this is the game plan, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely my belief, and you guys should all be familiar with it by now, that we are coming down to these lower bands of this long-term regression band for Bitcoin, just like we have done in previous cycles. You can see it very, very clearly illustrated. This is the direction that we're heading at, or heading to, I should say. There's technical reasons for this on the sort of shorter time frames when you look at areas of consolidation. And also we've got this 200 weekly moving average down here, which is, you know, this is the target that I think Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market will follow, gets down to. So there's still more downside at play. And the reason we said be careful and that we maintain a cautious stance is just simply because of what the Fed are doing. The Fed are actively trying to bring down markets and kill off consumer demand. And they're doing that via upping interest rate hikes. And until that changes and we see a pivot on that, markets are going to remain under the immense pressure that they are currently under. So I know people may be getting a little bit bored of me sort of bringing this up and talking about it, but this is the game plan. This is what we're looking at. And we are back in the range that we were previously in. It looks like we saw that break, but it very quickly got killed off. And that tells you everything you need to know about the current stance of the cryptocurrency market. And looking at this, it's very interesting, the kind of structure that you are setting up. Because we've broken this. We've been speaking about breaking this midline of the long-term regression bands for a while. And you're doing it in a similar manner to what you did in 2018, or prior to that, 2014, 2015. So in 2013's bull market, it took you a little bit longer to get down here. Really, liquidity would have been the issue there. But when you break it, you always, after a kind of harsh break, you can see the wick, you do get some sort of a green candle before that continuation ensues. And I think that continuation, you know, there's still more scope for upside here. However, eventually it gets crushed under the weight of the kind of macroeconomic tides. And that's what people need to really understand. Now, what I want to do is take this off. We're going to drop down the time frames. We're going to show you where we're at on more of an intraday basis. And then we're also going to be talking about a number of things that are happening within the cryptocurrency space. We know that Solana essentially got halted again. This is hugely disappointing for a number of reasons. You can't have a blockchain that just stops and starts, you know, certainly as frequently as the likes of Solana does. I mean, how can you build any kind of a sustainable ecosystem on it when the actual blockchain that these dApps are built upon, you know, just simply decides to shut off and sort of restart? It doesn't make a great deal of sense. And this is going to be an issue that I think is going to persist. We've seen it happen time and time again. And this is really going to deter investors. And Solana, for me, is a typical example of a VC-backed coin that doesn't actually... Lots of talk, not a lot of action. But we will cover that. So let's drop down the time frames. We've got a number of other things to go over. We will be looking at the stock market, which, of course, sold off. And also talking, again, we have spoken on great length about the dollar and the FX markets and why the dollar is likely to see more strength. This is bad for crypto. And also the commodity markets, which is seeing a bit of an uptick, which, if the Fed is upping their mandate based on inflation, that's the key thing to watch. The key factor and component to watch is inflation, where it's at and where it's going. If inflation persists to go higher, the Fed have every single backing to continue to up interest rates to combat it. That's their real tool that they're using, and that, of course, is affecting markets and driving markets. Why we reiterate it day in, day out. This is something that we've had going for a while now, and you guys know every single day when we were in this range, we were not only trading it on an intraday basis because it was very easy to do. You just look for divergences to either the up or the downside. We'd spoken about this at great length, but essentially, and it's very funny because we actually drew something similar to this. If you look at this draw that we put on, when did we actually tweet this? We tweeted this around about 7 days ago, when we were essentially looking at this. We had this one spill here, we got the other spill down here, and then I said this was quite a likely play. And the key difference between me and many other market analyzers out there is I critically think about markets, not just in terms of the cryptocurrency market, but markets across the board. It's something that we've kind of become almost macroeconomists, and there's far more educated and brilliant minds out there than myself. It's not really a specialty of mine, but we've really been paying attention to the macro because it's the driver of the markets, and that macro landscape still persists. We're back into this range. What now happens? Well, I can see the scope for more upside in regards to something like this, maybe a deviation before we then get that slam. But ultimately, I do think, talking about the long-term regression bands at the start of the video, this market sees more downside before it sees that upside. When we get down to our targets, that's when we're going to start scaling into altcoins, and we're going to start to accumulate Bitcoin once again. We're not there yet. Why would I accumulate Bitcoin now if I think it's going lower? We could be wrong, and we could see higher prices for the cryptocurrency market. But ultimately, guys, my bias is that this market sees downside, and me and many of you out there are going to have the fantastic opportunity to accumulate altcoins and Bitcoin at significantly lower prices. We are setting up a Patreon, which is going to involve 3 tiers. The top tier is what I'd advise people to go for, simply because you're going to not only get all of my altcoin lists and where I'm accumulating them at to build generational wealth if you play this right into the future, but also you're going to get weekly meetings with me wrapped up in that package. So we can hopefully, perfectly sort of ride this market together. And you've essentially just had quite a support and resistance flip here. Can you see how this was once support? It's now acting as resistance. It is a downtrend, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll see how the day progresses. Now, the FTSE, I always keep an eye on the FTSE because I got family in it. And of course, the S&P futures is seeing a bit of an uptick after a down leg. I think, like I say, I can still see the scope for more upside here, guys. But I think it does eventually get killed. I've closed my shorts last night. Taking profits is extremely, it's so underrated. It's such a basic thing to say to people. But if you're a trader, take the profits, guys. If you have profits, everybody wants to, and I know it because I still do it myself. You're on a winning streak and you go, okay, I'm going to hold this because it could be a big one and we could see that big sort of move. It doesn't happen, and it actually often will go against you. Doesn't mean that you can't swing trade on a sort of significant level. We did it with the likes of Luna and a number of other things. But ultimately, taking profits is key if you want to be a successful trader. And of course, we did see the US stock market pull back. And we actually saw that on dollar strength. Dollar had a great day yesterday. It's now pulling back a little bit. But ultimately, this could just be bottoming structure. We've got targets to round about we see the dollar going significantly higher. This is a kind of target that we've had set for a while now. Very natural that the dollar was going to sort of see a pullback, which allowed your equity market to see a bit of relief that everyone was anticipated after it's ran sort of the key levels that it has. Let's get into a bit of the news now that we've sort of covered the markets generally. Like I say, amazed, we critically think about markets and come up with our analysis based on that. Again, Fed is still going to do what they are doing. Fed's daily, let's get US interest rates to 2.5 as quickly as we can. We're nowhere near that yet, guys, and ultimately they've got to get off that 0 mark only to undo it later on down the road. We saw oil prices see a bit of a soar in terms of to the upside. You now have Saudi Arabia essentially coming out and saying they're going to step up if Russia's output dips under sanctions. We know for the EU, I think they've done a complete embargo and a complete boycott of oil, which should see oil prices continue to move up. Inflation is the main topic, and whilst that persists, the regime that the Fed currently have set out is going to be in play. And ultimately, again, we think these markets come lower, ladies and gentlemen. One thing, and I'm not going to pull up any specific article on Blockworks, we'll just read a couple. Binance launches $500 million fund to drive Web3 adoption. Ex-Wall Street exec secures funding for young crypto firm. Singapore Central Bank ready to try DeFi after crypto gains. There's just countless articles and countless companies out there that are innovating towards the cryptocurrency market. We may seem bearish in the short term, but nobody is more bullish on the crypto space than me, guys. Ultimately, the bull will return, but ultimately I think lower prices have to dictate that to really attract people in, and the kind of monetary policy that we're currently under has to change. When that does happen, the infrastructure is going to be far more advanced, and it's going to really allow the cryptocurrency market to flourish. That's why we hang in there and stick with this space. 11% of insurance insurers invest or are interested in investing in crypto, the world is turning to blockchain, guys. We think it's a technological revolution that's going to change the world, similarly to other technological revolutions. When we started this channel years ago now, we often spoke about Amazon and how crypto was on a similar, or Bitcoin, we really compared Amazon to, was on a similar trajectory in the terms of it as a new technology or a new technology derivative project that is going to have a big impact in our lives moving forwards. I want to touch on this a little bit in regard to Solana halting by bug linked to certain cold storage transactions. Solana is having nothing but problems, guys. And when I look at other blockchains out there, they deserve the capital, in my opinion, significantly more than the likes of Solana, which has really just been, in many ways, artificially propped up by its investors and kind of championed, whilst other blockchains get completely left in the dark. However, they've done significantly more and have actually been, some of them, running without a hitch, in terms of the actual blockchain not having to halt and continuous block production for years now, whereas Solana just simply hasn't, they barely go a month without some sort of a haltage. How can you run a sustainable blockchain with these kind of issues? I don't think you can, and I think this is hugely damaging for the likes of Solana, whereas it's down significantly due to the haltage. I think these halts are going to persist. I think Solana is going to come significantly lower. We had previously spoken to you on a number of occasions, and we can use Solana as an example. If we take it off log, what we're going to do is we are going to bring up Ethereum. We're going to take all the little squiggly draws off. We're also going to get rid of this. You know, very similar in terms of cycles. We'll also switch it to a weekly to make it a little bit more comparable. Can you see this, ladies and gentlemen? This is what the entire altcoin market is going through, a Ethereum 2017 and 2018 kind of approach. But that's really all I've got for you in this video, guys. If you have enjoyed this content, a like is always really appreciated. So is a comment, and I look forward to seeing each and every one of you in the next YouTube video. Remember to look out for our official announcement of the Patreon and the Discord and everything that comes with it. Something I'm really excited to launch. We put a lot of time and effort into it, and I really can't wait to see you guys in the community so that we can all grow and make some money, hopefully, together. All I've got for you in this one, guys. Have a fantastic Thursday, and I'll catch you all in the next YouTube video.